I was one of the officers who made an arrest on a individual who shot and killed one of our Columbus police officers.
What we can do as a community to kind of sort of come to the table and say, okay, well, let's guide these young-minded to in a positive way.
If you ever get pulled over, just comply with the officer. Make sure he sees your hands. 99% of our officers are out there trying to do the right thing. I would suggest that if this is a career that you're actually considering, go out and start taking as many civil service tests as you can possibly can.
So those folks or those people that are committing those crimes that you are investigating and trying to solve the problem for, what age group were they? Welcome to another episode of Innovation Somalia. I am your host, Abdul Ali. I'm coming to you from Columbus, Ohio. I'm really excited. Today's guest is somebody that you might find very interesting, very informative. It's Officer John A. Brown from the Columbus Police Department. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So, Officer Brown, how long have you been with the force?
I've been on for 28 years. I am currently going on to my 29th year, be 29 years in December.
Oh, wow. That's a long time.
Yes, sir.
You have seen a lot of things.
I have. Had a blessed career.
Yes. So, just walk us through, just to have an understanding of, for that 28 years, where you were in just one particular department? Did you move around? Were you always a police officer that was on the road? So tell us a little bit background on that.
So when I came on back in 95, after graduating the academy, after you graduate the academy, you immediately go to patrol. So I worked patrol, the various different precincts for a few years, and I was blessed enough to go to the detective bureau.
Oh, okay.
As a burglary detective. So I worked as a burglary detective for 5 years.
Okay.
Decided that I wanted to go back to patrol because I was able to work a earlier shift. So I wouldn't be working nights. I had daughters. So I was able to be home at night with them.
Yeah.
Working an earlier shift on patrol. So I did that for a while. Decided to work the accident investigation unit where I investigated fatals for about a year. That was a later shift, so I have to go back to a later shift to do that type of work. Came back to patrol, and then I've also went back into the detective bureau as a property crime detective, where we investigated frauds, thefts, B&Es, commercial B&Es, things of that nature. Left there to went to the motorcycle unit, tried my hands at riding a motorcycle.
Okay. So you were actually riding a motorcycle?
I tried.
Okay.
I tried. That, people don't understand how difficult that assignment is, or that job is. Just the training in and of itself, it has the highest washout rate on any police department across the nation because the training is so difficult.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of guys wash out, and unfortunately I was one of those individuals who washed out. I couldn't maintain that motorcycle up at the speeds that were asked of me.
Okay.
Crashed that motorcycle quite a few times.
Okay.
Luckily, I didn't hurt myself too bad, but I left that, went back to patrol, and then I eventually ended up in the community liaison unit, and that's where I'm currently right now.
Okay.
As a community liaison.
Okay. So the detective part of it, you were in the burglary. So give us just a general understanding of. So most of your data times, like you were behind the desk, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So here in Columbus, we have a very large police department, and obviously I've given you a list of a lot of different places that I was able to go.
Yeah.
On a large police department, we specialize in certain units and certain crimes. So when I came on back in 95, the burglary unit was the unit that investigated residential and commercial burglaries, thefts, high felony thefts, and things of that nature. So as a detective, you would be assigned a report. So actually typically what happens is if you were a victim of a burglary or a high-end theft, you would call for a cruiser to come out to take a report. That officer would come out and take that report. That report would be then assigned for follow-up investigation by a detective. So my supervisor would assign me that follow-up report. I would then go through the report to look for any solvability factors, follow up on anything in the case that would end up solving the case. So it really depends on the day. You could be sitting at your desk writing up a case, getting it prepared for a grand jury review, or you can be out interviewing individuals. Sometimes there'd be cases where a patrol officer would give you a call and say, hey, I have a scene, I have ABC at this scene, and you would feel a need to go out to respond to that scene, maybe assist with the processing of the evidence, things of that nature, maybe doing a canvas of the neighborhood, trying to develop suspect information.
Okay. And so those folks or those people that are committing those crimes that you are investigating and trying to solve the problem for, what age group were they? Like, if you can have to kind of sort of on a just a general overview to say that, okay, well, we see majority of these type of people that are committing this type of behaviors and that type of nature as well.
So I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It ran the gamut.
Okay.
I ran the gamut of age, of race. It ran the gamut. I mean, I've had of gender. I've had, numerous individuals in front of me that were suspects of those type of crimes.
Yeah. What is the consequence for such a crime?
So that would be a property crime.
Okay.
So usually, and it depends upon the crime. So I don't know if you're familiar how crimes are graded.
Yeah,
So
give us an understanding. Yes.
Example, because they're graded on a certain scale. So you'll have misdemeanor crimes.
Okay.
Misdemeanor
That I know, yeah, because I guess
misdemeanor are your lower crimes, but they also have a scale.
Okay.
So you'll go up from minor misdemeanor to a misdemeanor 4, misdemeanor 2, misdemeanor 3, misdemeanor 1, and the higher up on that scale that you go, the more severe the penalty is for that crime.
Gotcha.
Felonies are the exact same way. So you have a felony of a 5th degree, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st degree. Now, your 1st degree felonies are typically your murders, your robberies, or things like that. Burglaries would typically fall. It depends upon of the structure that was breached, whether it was a residential structure or if it was a commercial structure. Obviously, a residential structure is going to be a felony of the 2nd degree, a little bit higher degree of a felony because it's the likelihood of someone actually being there. Your commercial burglaries, typically maybe your B&Es, maybe not somebody being there. Those are typically about felony of the 4th or 5th degree, really depending upon the circumstances. So again, the higher up that scale, the more severe the penalty is for that crime.
Okay. So you pretty much kind of sort of come across the board.
Oh,
so,
across the board, yes.
Okay.
In those types of investigations.
Okay.
So as far as other crimes like your robberies, your homicides, I didn't get the experience to investigate those types of crimes. Another detective that specialized in those types of crimes would investigate those types of crimes. So here in Columbus, our detectives are specialized. They specialize in certain crimes, which gives you an opportunity to get really, really good at your area of expertise that you're engaged in.
And when you get right out of the gate from the academy, like you immediately just go in this is just not specifically in general. Do you immediately go to patrol? How can somebody to gain the experience that requires for them to be on the road?
So they go through the academy. Now, when I went through the academy, it was a 6-month program.
Okay.
I think it's a little longer now.
Okay.
So
how long is it now?
I think it's maybe 7 months now.
Okay. Not that much of a difference.
Maybe 7 months now. So after you graduate the academy, you're going to be assigned a field officer to train you. So that field officer will take you under his wings for it. And back when I came on, it was 5 weeks for the first field officer. The second field officer, the phase that I went through, was a 4-week program. But that field officer is going to be with you the whole time, training you, making sure that the skill sets that you learned in the academy, that you're applying them appropriately out there in the field. So once you get through that coaching period, then they usually, send you on your way. Now, to my understanding, it's been a long time since I've been through the academy. So I think those officers are actually going through 4 different field officers training now. So the field officer training has been extended. It's kind of a probationary period. You'll start your probationary period as you enter the academy, and by the time you get off your probationary period, a year has gone past. So typically from the 6 months or the 7 months through the academy, then the field training that you go through, you'll be on a probationary period, monitored pretty heavily as you're out there in the field, and hopefully you're learning those skills.
You have to. You have to pick up on those. In your experience, kind of wanted to pick on things that you have seen. So, for example, what advice would you give, like especially in my community, right,
yes,
from Somalia? What type of advice would you give that when you get pulled over, things to do and things not to do?
Good question. Here's what I would tell people.
Okay.
If you ever get pulled over, just comply with the officer. Make sure he sees your hands. 99% of our officers are out there trying to do the right thing. And we're trying to process a lot of information. People don't realize how much information that we're trying to process and think through.
Yeah.
Because we don't know who this individual is. A lot of times you pull a vehicle over, you can't tell a race or gender.
Yeah.
Because the vehicle's moving at a certain amount of speeds. So people think that we can actually tell what the person's race or gender is prior to us pulling them over, and a lot of times we can't. So what I would tell you is that just comply with the officer. If you get a ticket, or if subsequently charges come from the stop or the encounter, as long as you comply, you're going to have your day in court.
Okay.
So, if you feel that you were wronged, you will have the opportunity to express that. So as long as you comply with the officer, you should be fine.
And oftentimes that we hear, hey, call your supervisor.
Yes.
What does that exactly mean? So in a sense of that, what will that give you as an individual that who get pulled over? So for example, you pulled me over and you and I not seeing things to eye to eye. Yeah. And I say, hey, I want you to call your supervisor. And is that beneficial, or because what you're telling me, what different would your supervisor tell me?
Probably in most cases, the supervisor is probably going to reiterate whatever the traffic stop was. This is the traffic stop. You're going to have your day in court.
Yeah.
So, we're not going to sit here and argue on the side of the road. We're not going to adjudicate this traffic stop here on the side of the road. I promise you're going to have your day in court.
Yeah.
To show up to court. He's going to give you a court date, or if you are being arrested, just go ahead and comply with the slating process, get through the process. The process is the process. Once you get through that process, I promise you're going to have your day in court, or you're going to be able to get your side of the story out. So,
what if somebody's having a difficulty speaking English?
That's a good question. Yeah. So I know that the police department now has a very diverse department now. So we have officers that speak Somali. We have officers that speak Nepali. We have officers that speak Spanish.
Okay.
We have officers. So we're going to try to get those officers to you.
Okay.
If we can't, then we do have services and we do have tools that we can use. We can use a phone service that will translate between the individual and the officer.
Okay.
So we do have tools. I've even seen some officers actually have a physical translator right there, so they can actually communicate back and forth. Okay. Not every officer, but some officers can.
Okay.
So there are tools out there to get that communication going back and forth.
Right. That's helpful, because I know there is 2 Somali officers here in Columbus, Ohio.
Yes.
I think we need more, but that's a different discussion.
No.
I think we need more.
Hopefully your viewers pick up on that.
Yes.
It's a great job.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Very good pay. I was able to put 2 daughters through college on this police department.
Nice.
Very good department. Very good pay. We are, constantly always looking to increase that diversity, because we want our police department to reflect the community that it's serving. So, please, if you're out there, you're thinking about it, please come and apply.
You hear that? So a lot of people complain about the vetting process might be difficult, but those are things that you just have to go through.
Yes. So I actually, when I became a police officer, I actually tested 8 different departments. This is what I wanted to do. And the more tests that I took, the better I got at taking tests.
Okay.
So I would suggest that if this is a career that you're actually considering, go out and start taking as many civil service tests as you can possibly can. I tested all across the state of Ohio. I was blessed to be able to get on the department where I was born and raised.
Okay.
So very beneficial for me. I was able to actually go back to and work within the same community that I grew up in.
Nice. Was that Columbus? Or?
Yeah, it was in Columbus.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes,
so you grew up from Columbus?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
sir.
Wow.
Yes,
Wow.
Sir.
I've been here, almost like 30 years now. I think 27 years, 26 years. Columbus has changed a lot, and it's growing.
Yes.
So how is it the department, it's kind of sort of handling that, the growth that comes along with Ohio?
That's a good question. So again, we're trying to get the numbers up to where they need to be sufficient to service a city of this size. So we're trying to get the number of officers up. Luckily, technology is kind of helping us out. When I came on, you didn't know everyone within that community, or everyone that you were able to encounter. We didn't know, who the bad guys were all the time. You just don't know. Because no one's driving around in orange jumpsuits. Let me know that they're a bad guy. So the more people that I came in contact with gave me a better opportunity of coming across someone that did something that they shouldn't have done, and I'm able to take action. Now we're able to utilize a lot of analytics, use a lot of data that provides us information on where those crime trends are going and where my services is probably going to be more suitable to address those crime trends. So technology has helped out with that a lot. So the department is growing. The department is evolving. Policing across the nation is evolving because of the technology that we have out there now.
Excellent. I mean, you come across something quite interesting. I don't know if there's any story that you can share, some of the interesting that you come across. Is there something that kind of sort of stand out? I remember one time, a police officer were talking about an older lady that, seniors we were talking about, had her old Cadillac driving one time, and her driver license was not up to par, so they have to kind of sort of call. So that, do you have an interesting story you can share?
Man, I got several. I've been on 28 years, and I tell you the things that stick out to me are the calls for service where not that I arrest someone, that I actually helped or benefited someone. I remember a young man that was attempting or threatening to attempt to commit suicide. And when I got to, I was first officer at the door, and he had a knife in his hand, and I was able to talk him into putting that knife down. His mother was behind me, and we were able to get him some help, the help that he needed. Those are the kind of runs that I look back on and I appreciate. I was one of the officers who made an arrest on an individual who shot and killed one of our Columbus police officers.
Oh, wow.
So those types of runs, they kind of, stick with you. They stay with you.
Yeah. And one in sales they say one yes outweighs million no's. Those are things that kind of sort of feel like we as on the other side should be appreciative a lot more. Do you understand? So I mean, those were like two different things from the two different extremes. If you think about it, right? Yeah. I'm glad you were there. I'm glad you were there. So the other thing I kind of sort of want to jump into my community. There has been a number of kind of youth violence and youth challenge. I don't want to say kids, but these are young-minded that are trying, kind of almost like getting out of control. In your experience, do you see, large community that in my community that kind of sort of need help, and you think that, what we can do as a community to kind of sort of come to the table and say, okay, well, let's guide these young-minded to in a positive way?
Yeah, well, I think just like your community, other communities struggle with this as well.
Yeah.
So I think it starts at home.
Yeah.
I really do. I think it starts when the child or the youth are younger. I feel like if parents are involved in their kids' life academically, they're making sure they're getting their homework done. They're actually a part of that, them learning. They're making contacts with the teachers. They're involved in that child's academic. That helps. I think that providing a positive recreation for that child that you are involved in. I don't care if it's sports. I don't care if it's maybe making sure they give them an opportunity to learn an instrument. Just giving them something positive to do with their free time, their recreation time. I think that's a positive thing. I think being involved with your child's social network, learning who their friends are, knowing those friends' parents, being involved in their network. When you see all those things, parent involved in all those things, then typically I'm not seeing those kids later going down in my career. And those are kids that I'm probably not going to see often. I'm not going to see them, in my line of work, because they have a good heading. They have a good sense of direction of where they want to be and where they're going to go in life. So I think even in the Somali community or any other community, as a parent, if you're involved in that child's life, academically, their social network, making sure they provide them with positive recreational time, I think you're going to get them moving off in the right direction.
Absolutely, absolutely. Those are things that I think we need to get involved in terms of parents. I myself have 3 kids, and I try to be as much as they're in yeah, absolutely. It's difficult, but the other thing it is that I kind of wanted to touch on. Immigrants don't have the luxury of, because you have that difficulty of speaking the language, you have difficulty of relocating, and that itself kind of sort of have like a mental health issue too as well.
Yes.
And so, and I think within community, we just kind of need to come and do a little bit better job. But what I did wanted to ask was, in seeing these number of kids, is there a trend of your learning experience to kind of sort of say, okay, well, let's have somebody on the job that kind of sort of gonna do the transition to understand for them to do better. So for example, like let's just say you pulled somebody that who was, having a hard time kind of sort of in life. Maybe is on the age trying to get off, doesn't know right or wrong. Knows, but doesn't know which direction to go because they're both influenced equally. Is there somebody in the force that kind of sort of, you guys can call, kind of sort of talk some sense into that person, kind of like mental health or kind of sort of a little bit of psychology to kind of sort of say, okay, hey, you're going through this, maybe basically align the resource with that person?
That's a good question. So as far as mental illness or mental evaluations, we do have a unit that addresses those types of issues. As far as someone who may not have those issues, or they're just battling some social issues that they're maybe got caught up in the wrong crowd, if there's a way to intervene in that circumstance, that may have come to an individual like me as a community liaison. Maybe a patrol officer may reach out to me and say, hey, I met this young man, he charged him with this crime, but he's one that we can probably save if we can get a hold of him quickly. They may reach out to me, and I can reach out to that individual and see if we can find him the resources that he needs to get himself out of that situation. So there are situations where officers can intervene. I can tell you this, as an officer for 28 years, some of the proudest moments that I can recall are when individuals that I had encounters with, they find me or seek me or come across me at a later time, and they say, hey, that encounter changed the trajectory of my life. So, and it may have been the way they were just treated. They felt like they were treated, decently by just another human being who just happened to be a police officer, and they were able to change their trajectory of their life. So if your viewers are seeing someone they can that are going down the wrong path, they can always reach out to call police or reach out to a police officer, and that officer will try to get them some resources to get them in that direction.
You guys, as the last resource, when you guys get involved, it's one way or the other.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So oftentimes it just it gets to the boiling point, I would assume.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Oftentimes we have bad image from the police.
Yes.
So, and let's talk about that a little bit. Maybe let's see ways we can impact. So it just depends on the individuals, both parties, from whether that's the police or whether the person that have the encounter with the police. And just generally for me, my experience in life, treat people how you want to be treated. So it's a two-way street.
Yes.
So it's not a one-way street. Regardless what's your right or not, for me, it's I will get a good result if I were to kind of sort of having a good impact or good positive discussion with you. So, but there are some that are just kind of sort of an overreach.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's talk about the good and the bad of your line of work. And if somebody feels like, somebody's overreaching, kind of sort of stepping on their powers a little bit too much. So what kind of advice would you give me as an individual if I'm experiencing somebody who I feel like, not doing the right way?
Okay, that's a good question. So what I would tell you to do is you got to realize one thing, that officer's processing a lot of information, trying to get as much information in as he can. Sometimes you can help by just slowing things down. Just slow down for the officer. Don't get irate. If you are having an encounter with an individual who may be overstepping his bounds, and it's possible, just comply with whatever orders he's giving you. You will have an opportunity to have those concerns addressed at a later time. You'll be able to have your you'll be able to share your side of the story. So what I would tell you to do is just comply with the officer, and maybe at a later date and time you can maybe speak with the supervisor, or you can even ask to speak with the supervisor. Sometimes just being able to get that maybe some other officer or supervisor providing you the information when they're not as hyped up, they're not full of adrenaline. Maybe you might be able to understand what the officer's position was, and if you're not happy with that, then there are still avenues for you to address those concerns. You can file a complaint with our Internal Affairs Department.
How does that work, in generally speaking? So if I wanted to file a complaint,
yes,
and let's just say you pulled me over today and I'm not having a good time with you, you still give me the ticket. How do I go by my?
Well, the complaint's not going to solve the ticket.
Right. I know that. Yeah, make sure the complaint's not going to solve the ticket. Absolutely.
But there is an avenue for you.
Yeah.
So you can contact our Internal Affairs Department.
Okay.
You can contact our administrative department. They can give you instructions. You can contact, I believe the city has there are some hotlines that you can reach out to, but I think we have Attorney General's office now.
Okay.
You can reach out to Attorney General's office now, and then they can address those concerns as well. So just comply with the officer. Again, if you feel like you've been treated unfairly, or the officer overstepped his bounds, you can always file a complaint later, and then that would be investigated. But I can tell you this here: no officer wants an officer out there that's mistreating people. Our chief doesn't want an officer out there mistreating people. Our citizens don't want an officer out there mistreating people. So we are under scrutiny. We do have these body cameras. That sheds a lot of light on the transaction that just occurred. So what I would tell you to do is just comply. It's on video. If you want to file a complaint, you can file a complaint later, and it can be reviewed. And if there was some misconduct there, then it would be addressed. I promise you that.
It just comes down to comply.
Yeah, just comply. Just comply.
Just comply.
Just comply. Even if you think that officer's wrong, go ahead and comply. I promise you, it'll be addressed
on a later time.
At a later time.
I'm glad you kind of sort of clarified, because oftentimes that we think about, I'm getting pulled over. There's no way I can identify, the speed limit that I was going.
Yes.
How are you able to identify? I wasn't able to identify.
That's a different issue.
Right.
That's something that's going to be addressed in court.
Okay.
So you'll be able to have your say in court.
Okay.
And it depends upon if there's a jury or a judge or who is evaluating. Again, all we're doing is issuing a citation.
Yeah.
We're just saying, hey, you broke this city ordinance or this law. Yeah. And then whether or not you are convicted of that, that's the judicial side. That's where when you go to court, you can be judged by your peers, or you can be judged by a judge, and then they make that determination.
Gotcha. So normally, at what speed do you even consider pulling somebody? So if it's 35, if I'm going 42, do you consider pulling me over? 45, like 10 miles an hour, 10 miles over the limit? What do you consider, personally speaking? Because one time I get pulled over, I was doing, normally, somebody told me that, hey, I won't even look at you past 10. Mm-hmm. So some officers
may say that. Yes.
Yeah. So you were going 11. I'm like,
some officers may wait. They may not stop you until you get 15 over. But here's the deal.
Okay.
They're not having a conversation with you.
Yeah.
They're not warning you. You're gonna probably get a ticket. So, and some officers they may stop you at 5 over.
Yeah.
That they feel that's enough. They may cite you. They may give you a warning. It really depends upon the officer, and that's the beauty of that discretion. We still have that discretion, because a lot of times there's other factors that are going on. What's the road conditions like? How busy is traffic? I got kids running? Are you in a school zone?
Yeah.
So all these different things we have to take in consideration. So the time of day, we take all those things into consideration. But again, it's Really simple. See the posted speed limit and maintain that speed limit, and you shouldn't get pulled over at all. So as long as we're within the posted speed limit, then we should be fine.
One interesting question that I want to ask, and this is relating to a little bit on the dangerous side of the job.
Yeah.
Okay, you pull an individual, and let's say that they have a firearm in the vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, legally, right? Do you rather be told that in advance, or what is the procedure? What is the protocol for that?
I would say that if you get pulled over by an officer and you do have a firearm in the vehicle, number one, make sure that officer sees both hands on the steering wheel, and just advise the officer, hey, there is a firearm in the car. Right now, the state of Ohio does allow individuals to carry concealed firearms without a permit.
Can you break the definition of concealed?
That's a good question.
Okay.
So concealed it's hidden.
Okay.
So the state has always recognized open carry.
Okay.
So open carry is if someone's got one slung over their shoulder, or someone's got one in their holster but it's exposed. Okay. They've always recognized open carry, and then we used to have a law that prevented concealed carry, and then you had the law that allowed concealed carry, but you had to obtain a permit to conceal carry. And now the state has went to the point where you don't have to have a permit to conceal carry. So if you have a firearm, I will let the officer know that you have a firearm whenever you get pulled over or stopped.
Because these are things that I feel like is on the danger side of your job that can just easily change the conversation with that individual, like completely. It's a 180, right?
Well, no, not necessarily.
Okay.
It's nice for me to know. And again, what did I pull you over for? What is being told to me at the time? Am I pulling you over because this vehicle fits the description of an armed robbery that just occurred? That's going to heighten my senses. So just comply and advise them that the officer that you have the firearm. Now, another thing that what worries me is tinted windows. So what I usually tell people, and I'm going to ask, if I pull you over, for my safety and your safety, let's roll those windows down and listen. They're tinted. You chose to get them tinted. Unfortunately, you got pulled over, and now I want to be able to feel comfortable during this transaction. Right. So if you had clear windows, I can see through the windows, and I would feel comfortable during this transaction. You be safe, I be safe, and we can go home. So as long as you roll all those windows down, if you got all 4 windows tinted, roll them all the way down. That way when the officer approaches you, he can see who's in the car. He's not concerned about somebody in the back seat. So just roll those windows down. Give him full view of the vehicle. Once your encounter is over, you can roll your windows back up and you can move on your merry way. It's
interesting because there's like crazy videos that are going around on pretty much across the social media. Somebody would just kind of put the license right on the window, like, okay, here's my license. For me, there's no benefit for me for that. But some people just kind of in a different way of handling the situation, I would say. What do you like? This is just in conclusion. What do you like your job the most?
That's a good question. I've always enjoyed that every day is different. I would come home from work and I would sit down in front of my wife and go, honey, you will not believe what I've seen today. And I would tell her a story. And then tomorrow I would come home the next day and go, honey, you will not believe what I've seen today. And it's just every day, something new every day. And that's, what makes the job interesting, is that you really don't have an idea of what you're going to run into when you come on shift. You really don't.
One last advice from your experience for my viewers and for my community, pretty much any immigrant community, what advice do you have for them in terms of when there's a counter with you? I know we talked about a lot of comply, but what other things that you would add to it?
Yeah, I would say that from being on this job and actually interacting with individuals that are coming from another country, learning their customs, learning how they speak. Sometimes that they may speak with their hands. I have to learn that, to be comfortable, make sure they're comfortable, make sure I'm comfortable, just to learn their customs. So if you can, just learn the customs of the country that you're visiting. So sometimes, I've been on scenes where had an individual who is very loud speaking. Yeah, they breach that personal space, but that's just part of their custom. That's how they talk. That's how they communicate. And so, as an officer, so if you're a new officer and you're not familiar with that, that could cause you some concern.
Yeah.
So, just learning those things where you're slow down. If you need an interpreter, make sure you let the officer know. But if you slow your communication down, slow your actions down, that allows that officer to start processing and start thinking through whatever issue that he's there to address. So I would tell you, just slow down. Don't get too hyped up.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
We'll leave it at that.
Thank you,
It's
sir.
just been such a pleasure in a conversation with you.
Thank you,
so
sir.
much for your time.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.